pool, but what I want the seller to see is maybe the pool is 5, maybe it's 8, maybe I want them to know what percentage of that pool are consistently choosing Huntington Harbor versus other neighborhoods in Huntington that might be offering more, and that's why the buyers are going there. Does that make sense?
Right.
Huge. Okay, what do we have?
159.
Oh, Huntington's huge. Okay, so we might have to narrow our price range.
Okay.
That's this year, right?
Yes.
Well, before you do,
Area. Why don't you go to area?
no, I don't want area.
Look at the whole thing. You
I,
get more
there,
money.
yeah, I see. I don't want to limit the area because the seller needs to see that they're competing outside of that area. The seller always wants to go to that little area, but that's not enough. It doesn't paint the picture. Okay, well, 159 this year, right? Who's got a calculator? 159 divided by 7.5.
Or why don't you go back? Why don't you do 180 plus instead of a date? If you do 180 days plus, that's exactly 6 months. So the number is going to change.
But I want to, you could do that.
Yeah.
I'll start with, it's easy for a seller if I say, okay, here's 2016, get that number. Now let's compare it to 2015. Is it going to change much? No. See, that's where I'm validated. Because there is an identifiable buyer pool regardless of how many ads you run, regardless of how many open houses you hold. And by the way, that was the buyer pool created by everybody's advertising in the entire industry around the world. Wow. And so what it shows is this is a predictable number. So 159 is this year. 159 divided by 7.5 is... Oh, 9. Okay, great. So 20. That'll work. That's a good number. Okay, so our buyer pool is 20. We now know that in 2016, 20 homes a month are selling like clockwork, $1.1 million to $1.5 million. Cheryl's loving this because Huntington's a big part of your world.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's go back to 2015. Same numbers. I need to compare apples to apples. Don't mess with the price range. Stay consistent. $1.1 million to $1.5 million. 2015 closings. 245?
45.
245 divided by 12 equals
20.
Using the same thing. Yeah, right on.
20.41. Is this amazing?
Yeah. Yes.
So look, these are the facts. This is not, I have nothing to do with this. These are the facts. But now if I'm the seller, hey look, I know 20 are going to sell. It's almost the exact same number, 16 as 15. This is great. Because now the seller's realizing this is the number that's going to sell, and it's not going to change. My influence isn't going to change it. You know, the seller's influence isn't going to change it. That's the number, right? We've got some going, yeah, and others kind of not sure. That's the number. See, this is so beautiful because the seller can grasp this. This is easy to grasp. So that's one of the two vitals. We just uncovered it. It's 20. What's the other vital?
Our area. Out of those 20,
No.
how many are buying it?
Totally.
No. What's the other? I'm just,
How many
we'll
active in
get
the
that,
same
but-
price range right now?
Active. So if 20 are selling every month and there's only 19 on the market for sale, hey, I can kind of set my own price. Because there's 20 people that are buying a home this month, there's only 19 on the market. So right? But there's not 19 on the market. There's an actual number today, and all we do is pull up Huntington, active,
92.
92. Okay, that's a little better than I thought. Okay, so you've got about a 5-month supply of homes in that price range in Huntington Beach. Now, we could take another step. If you needed to validate the buyer pool, which we don't need to do, it's clear at this point. I can pull up pendings and backups, anything in escrow, and that number is going to be a little higher than the 20 because there's something pending that's been pending for 6 months and never going to sell, right? You know, but again, yeah, that would validate the buyer pool. We don't need to. We're clear. So we have 20 that are going to close next month, next month, next month. There's 92. So, all right, 4.5, a little over 4.5. So now if I'm the seller, my home is one of these 92, right?
Right.
And I know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, 20 are going to go into escrow in the next 30 days. I put my buyer hat on, and mine is in the stack. And by the way, I'm giving them two things. A one-line printout of the 92, a one-line printout of the 20, but I also have full detail, because this is where the seller's got some work to do. I've got 92 properties for him to look at. These are the actives with a full detail so that you can compare apples to apples. And now I'm going to walk through this with the seller. The seller has their buyer hat on. Take off your seller hat, put on your buyer hat. Here's the checkbook. You get to buy 20 homes. We know that's how many you're going to sell. What's the million-dollar question now for the seller?
Which one would you buy?
When am I buying my own home? Right? If it's in the top 20, the seller goes through the 92 and says, hey, I'm number 15. What's the probability of that property going into escrow in the next 30 days?
Good and fair, right?
Come on, expert. Okay, you got 92. You're the 15th best out of that 92. What's the probability that you're going into escrow in the next 30 days with the knowledge that 20 are going into escrow?
Pretty good.
Probability.
Fantastic. What number would you put on that? What percentage? What probability? 20%, 50%, 80%?
80.
Well, not 50. But you've got 20 going into escrow, and you're the 15th best out of the 92. It's not 50. It's 80. It's 90. Right? Okay. So, and how long, where's Jacqueline? How long has this house been on the market?
Since April 9th.
April 9th. How many showings are you getting a week?
At first, 0, because it was at 1,420.
Okay, it was a higher price at 1st of April.
Yeah, and we immediately the next week dropped it down to 1,399. And then 2 weeks later, we knocked it down to 1,349. Still not
Okay.
getting very many.
Came on the 1st of April, 100 grand more, had some immediate price reductions. So April, May, June, July, August.
And
So,
now it's the lowest priced one in the harbor.
okay,
there, so-
lowest price in the harbor now. So instead of going back, historically you got very few showings when you first went on
Yeah,
because you were priced too high.
I'm still getting not enough showings, but I'm getting good open houses, and I've got verbal offers.
Okay, good open house activity, verbal offers. How many showings a week? Not counting
Probably
open
1
house.
to 2.
So I want to know what the brokerage community, I want to know
About 1 to 2.
1 to 2. How long has it been at this price?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay. And your showings went up to 1 to 2. Before that, you weren't even getting 1 to 2.
Right.
Okay. What's a realistic number? And I used to use this number too with sellers. How many showings a week is reasonable to expect offers to be coming in? Depends on the price range. So that may not be a fair question, but multiple showings a week, and you can expect offers.
And one other thing on this particular house, a lot of people in the harbor, they want boat docks, and this does not have a boat
I'll repeat the question. So she says it doesn't have a boat dock. That's desirable in the harbor. Okay, of course the price would be higher. All right, so you've got 92 that you're going through with the seller, and they get to decide which 20 they're going to buy. And all of a sudden they're seeing things through a different light. Because they're seeing how competitive their home is based upon their opinion of the 20 that they would choose. Is this making sense?
Yeah.
At that point, they're seeing at the price they are right now, their probability of going into escrow in the next 30 days. And I've done my job at that point. It's not my job to tell them that they should be more competitive than they want to be. It's my job, and I literally use these words with sellers. I say, I've learned that if I can give you very accurate information as to how your home is competing in the market, I'm now empowering you to make the right decision to accomplish your goal. And what the seller heard in that was, I think you're smart. I think if I give you good information, you're gonna make the right decisions. And that's how it should be, because it's their home. It's their asset. It's not mine. I'm the analyst. I'm the advisor. I'm the one showing them how their home is competing in the market. And then the question is, does that probability work for you? If they say yes, Now we're going another 30 days with them having real crystal clarity about the probability of going into escrow in the next 30 days. I've done my job. 90-some% of the time out there are sellers in the market, not everybody's sellers in the market. They truly believe that there is an infinite number of buyers for their home if you run another ad, hold another open house, what else? Fill in the blank. They believe that there is some fantasy marketing solution that will change their probability of going into escrow in the next 30 days. It doesn't exist. But I need to guide them to the point that they see it doesn't exist instead of telling them that it doesn't exist. And that's what makes us so powerful. And it's really an interesting exercise because they may travel through time another month or two before they want to get more competitive and they want to have a higher probability, but almost always that seller has their house on the market because they need to sell it. Even if they're telling me I'm really not that motivated and having a 10% probability is okay with me, from my experience, that didn't last very long. Another month or two would go by. Before your question, let me talk about one other real key part of this as far as the psychology of the seller. When I'm going through this at the beginning, I'm taking the listing. And by the way, price is not the issue for me on a listing. In fact, until they've hired me, they haven't really empowered me to be their analyst. I want to show them that we're the one to market on their behalf. I'm the one to negotiate for them. I want to get hired. The pricing job really comes after you get hired. And agents that try and force a price issue on a listing presentation usually don't get hired. And they go away and they justify it saying, that seller is not reasonable, I don't want to work for them. Well, it's normal for a seller not to be reasonable when they list their home because they're hoping against hope that their home is worth more than it is. That's okay. That's okay. But in that listing presentation, I want to ask questions and find out the truth. Do they need to sell? And if so, by when? If I can get that information, and I know for a fact that they have to be gone in 8 months, I just need to make sure that I have a 9-month listing and I'm getting paid. I'm not fighting them on anything else. I get paid to guide a process to a result. And they're not going to eat the elephant in one bite. I'm not going to convince them the night I'm taking the listing as to everything they need to do to get their house sold. It's not realistic. So I want to get hired. I want to know that my listing agreement goes beyond the time that they are flat out having to be closed and moved on. Does that make sense? So that was my calculation. So
what do you, okay, because they're very much, she wants out now. She has another house to go to.
let me get to that in a minute.
Yeah, okay.
You'll be the first question. When I go through that picture, got the buyer pool, here's the actives. When you go back to that 92, the seller's going to be looking at several of those and they're going to be really disgusted because they're feeling like, God, these people are giving their house away. And it might be a situation where that listing has been on the market for 6 months. And all of a sudden last month, they took a huge price drop because now that's a really motivated seller. And there's inevitably, in a stack of 92, there's going to be maybe, 20 that look too good. The price is too aggressive. Whether they chase the market and now they're adjusting, or they came on the market initially really aggressive because they have to sell. The seller's response is, we're not giving our house away like these people. We're not going to do that. And I'd say, okay, that's now an opportunity 30 days from now. Because 30 days, we're getting back together, and guess what 20 properties are the ones that went into escrow? The ones that the seller thought they're giving these houses away. Now keep in mind, the night I'm taking the listing, the seller's looking at this going, I'm just going to let these sell, and then I'll be next.
You got new ones coming out?
But again, can't eat the elephant in one bite. I can't educate that seller too much that first night. I'm not going there. I'm not going to say to the seller that night, well, yeah, but I got bad news for you because once these 20 sell, there's going to be 10 more that have a big price reduction in the next 30 days, and there's going to be 10 more coming on the market really motivated, so your odds of selling aren't going to be any better 30 days from now. I can't tell them that. I can't tell them that. It's too... you know, it's just like, you know, the seller can only absorb so much at one time. We're being paid to guide a process, not try to force something. So is this resonating?
That's great.
So what do you tell them?
You wait 30 days.
You wait 30 days, and now we do this again. And there's still, sure enough, 20 went into escrow, just like we thought. And we go back and look at the 92, and we're now on the pendings, you see the ones that have gone into escrow, and they're the ones that the sellers look at the ones that have gone into escrow, and they're, oh great, that one's gone, that one's gone, okay, now I'm looking better. Then we get to the actives, and it's just what Lila said, oh my gosh, 20 went into escrow, and 22 came on the market. And out of those 22, a handful of them, you know, half of them are really aggressive in price because they need to sell. And we look at the other 82, and 10 of them had big price reductions, and the sellers just they don't know what to think, because they're no more competitive 30 days down the road than they were day one. Now, we all knew that the night of the listing, but the seller doesn't know that, and they're not willing to hear it from you because the market hasn't spoken yet. The market has to speak, not me. I'm a salesperson with an agenda for you to sell and get a commission. I need the market to speak. So I let the market speak. 30 days go by. Seller is in the same spot. Now they're starting to realize, geez, 30 days from now, if the same thing happens, I'm still no more competitive. That's fine. They're owning now the competitiveness of their home, their asset in the market, and that's everything. It's everything. That's what is worth a commission. When a seller can be educated that way, you've earned your commission in spades, because now they know what they need to do to take the steps to get their home sold. There are no other answers. We all know that. There are no other tricks. There's nothing other than how is that home competing in the market. Making sense?
Yeah.
You got to practice this. Pull up some properties and just use them for practice. I told Jacqueline her question could be first, so.
I forgot.
Okay.
No, but I do have a question though, but do you ever take into consideration like a 4-bedroom to 3-bedroom at home?
Good question. Why don't we separate 4-bedroom, 3-bedroom, new, used? Why do we use resale? Why do we not do that?
Is it the price? It's what you get for the money.
Dory and I are the poster children as to why we don't do that. Because 4 years ago, Dory moves here from Temecula wine country, and we're married, and we're getting the lay of the land renting. Now we're ready to buy. All we want is a little single level with an ocean view. Is that too much to ask? Just the two of us. Just a little single level with an ocean view is all I want. Well, no, we'd have paid. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, human nature is human nature. I'm as guilty as the next person. So that's what we wanted. You know what we bought?
Big house.
We bought a home with 4 bedrooms and a bonus room. We wanted a little lot with no maintenance. We have a big lot. My water bill is like $600 a month right now. 4-car garage, big lot, big. How did that happen?
View? Did you get the view?
No view.
No view.
How did that happen?
It was a good value.
No, buyers aren't liars. Buyers want for price point. Buyers want the most for the least. That's what you said. This short sale came up, and it was, I mean, this is one of those where the listing agent knew they're under market. They only do a 2-hour open house for the whole marketing of the home because they're controlling the process, because they're going to find the buyer themselves, and that's what they're going to do. So we go there for the 2 hours, and there's people all over the place, and they're all writing offers. And Dory and I introduced ourselves to the listing agent and said, so nice to meet you. We're realtors, but you know what? We want you to represent us. We want you to earn the commission. Because that was the only way that we were going to have any shot on the home. And of course, he's liking us now. And we're qualified, so as good as, and so that's how it worked. That is exactly why the bedrooms don't matter. We're competing against everything. Most buyers want the most for the least. They want that more than a specific type of home. I mean, I'm the example, right? So that's why you don't limit it. I hope this is helping.
Yeah.
This is so much fun when you get good at this. It's so fun having a seller really clearly see the truth. What's going on? Here's how my home's competing. Here's what's going to happen a month from now. Question.
I didn't catch how many of the list of 92 you do details to show them. How many did you say?
On the actives, I have a full detail on every single one.
On 92.
How else can the seller evaluate
Okay.
which ones are the best?
Okay. And one other question. Every month, it won't be consistently 20. Sometimes because of the season, it could
Okay.
be 30, it could be 10. So let's say in that month, only 10 sell.
I'll repeat
Now
the
do we
question.
have a panic person?
Okay, question is, it won't be 20 every month. It's going to vary some. And we touched on this last week. It is going to vary some, but not that much. You've got 80% of the sales November, December that you have now. So it's not as if it goes 20, 27. It just doesn't happen. So yeah, it'll vary a little bit, but of course the seller can understand that. But there is a very predictable number, and there is an active number that they're competing against. And when the seller is clear on that, there's nowhere they can go. They can't now blame me saying, would you wave your magic wand and make my home more competitive in the market? They know that that just simply isn't the way it works. So those two simple vital statistics tell the whole tale as to how that house is competing. So practice this. Pull up your own listing, pull up another listing, go through the process, get very comfortable, because you're going to sit down with a seller and you're going to provide them information that almost nobody in our industry is focusing on. They're still focusing on, here's 5 pretty pictures of comps, and the seller says, okay, well, I guess I'll price this, and it doesn't tell the seller anything. Yes?
I already follow this process and I understand it. I would like to challenge you on the next step, because I think this is a perfect property where it's on the harbor, it's unique. You have to go one more step in order to satisfy the seller, don't you?
Question is, what do you do if it's a unique property? It is on the waterfront. Same principles apply. I'm going to show them in that buyer pool of 20, I can validate it in time, what percentage are actually choosing waterfront versus non-waterfront. The same dynamics apply. But we can factor in every nuance of the home, and we can give them full credit and full value, but again, the market is speaking and changes. You had a price reduction last week talking about this.
I had 3.
You had 3?
Yeah.
Well, I got to get a microphone. Who has the microphone? Would you hand that to Kurt?
Good morning, everyone.
Why don't you come up here, because and then we'll end on this. What time is it?
10:15.
Okay, yeah, we'll end on this, but let's keep this conversation going.
And I think Brenda's expecting.
Yeah, and Brenda is expecting us. So,
Okay, so I had 3 listings that, when you get that, I've said this before, a light bulb moment when you realize something's really making sense to you. When Scott talked about this last week, I took what you gave me and ran with it, and the first time I presented it was to a CEO of a commercial real estate company, who's my client. And he's up in Los Gatos. And I said, listen, the absorption rate here is 8.56 in this price range. I only did 50 plus and 50 minus. And we ended up getting a $30,000 price reduction.
on the list price of
we were at $929. It's my listing on the Masters Circle,
Okay.
which is on Santa Ana Country Club. And so we did the price reduction almost instantly. And I can tell you, do you guys know how to reverse prospect? Okay, when you get those little hearts and the light bulbs popping up on your listing? Well, I had been on the market for 2 weeks. I've had no showings, no light bulbs, and no hearts, no nothing. No action. So we did the $30,000 price reduction, and instantly I got 4 hearts and like 8 possibilities. And it was only a $30,000 price reduction. It wasn't huge. Then on my other 2 listings, we just did 5,000 because we looked at the absorption rate once again, and we figured out that 5,000 was the number that we needed to go down. And both of those got offers last night.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Good
but-
leadership on your part.
Well, I'm just taking what you're giving me and running with it. So, but I do want to say, I'm kind of thinking outside the box. You can use this same process, and that's what I was thinking about over there when I raised my hand, with a buyer who says, no, I kind of want to watch this listing. If you use that absorption rate, you can almost predict when that house is going to go into escrow and tell that buyer, no, you probably don't want to wait because it's going to sell out from underneath you and you're going to be in a bidding war. So I'm just thinking outside the box on that.
A whole new topic. Thanks for just efforting to get your head around this, and I can't wait to hear more success stories. Thanks for being here. Shab, did you?
Yeah, I just real quick, wanted to just mention that I had numerous requests to develop a breakdown of the Altos reports about what each part means. So I'll leave these here at the post if you want to be interested in that.
And that's a service that Pickford Escrow is providing.
Yes, and whoever does not
Altos
receive the
reports.
Altos reports, they're complimentary. Just send me an email or text, and I'll sign you up, and they'll be emailed to you every Wednesday.
And Shab is our customer service rep for escrow, so that's a good person to know to get that information. Thank you for being here. Let's go out and see that house in Jasper Creek.
And a mentor meeting as soon as we're back from preview.